All right, counting us down in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and I'm on a trend. This is my second guest this year from Israel. Who knows, man? I'm about to do I need to get one more so I can do the hat trick. Uh, I am thrilled often, and we will get into this. For those of you who are in the business life, LinkedIn is part of our life. And I get a lot of emails and requests from people who either want to sell me software, get me staff, or talk about all these other things. And I got one today that wants to talk Springsteen. So I'm so happy. We have a writer, podcaster, business coach, and Springsteen fan, Daniel Alfon. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Jesse, thank you very much. What an amazing intro. You just got it. We need to start with a Springsteen fan and then everything business.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself.
With pleasure. So I'm based, as you said, in Israel, south of Tel Aviv, in a small community called Gani Avne. Married to Leah, and we have 3 kids. And my professional activity is helping companies leverage LinkedIn. It's a very powerful platform. It has close to 1 billion members worldwide, and every second, Jesse, 3 people sign up.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that's the serious stuff. The music has been a major part of my life since probably my early teens. And I was listening to an episode you recently released with Christine from Kentucky.
Yes.
And it's amazing to see how each Springsteen fan discovers part of Springsteen's output, and then everything relates to that. And I understand she's watched the Netflix show over 20 times.
Yes.
Wow. So I can't say that. Probably the first album I heard was either Born to Run or Born in the USA. And then I went and discovered Springsteen, and it's been a very interesting journey for me.
All right, we are going to get into that, but I always like to start at the beginning. So where did you grow up, and what kind of music did you and your family listen to when you were younger?
Cool. So I was born in France, not far away from Germany, where you stayed with your dad.
Yes.
And when I was 4, my parents decided to make Aliyah, to go to Israel. And I was in Israel till I was 16 years old.
Okay.
And when I was 16, they returned to France, and I returned with them. 7 years later, I decided to return to Israel for good. And since then, Israel is home. So there was a passage between ages 4 and 16. And since 23, I'm here.
Why did your parents decide to go to Israel?
Because they felt that France was not a good place to raise children who want to remain Jewish in a non-Orthodox way.
Okay.
I think the situation has probably gotten even worse today. You basically either become an Orthodox or assimilate, and anti-Semitism was also a part of the answer. I think Israel is the best place for me and for many people. It's a very small country. We're smaller than New Jersey, and it seems history is looking at you whatever you do, whenever you go. It's an amazing place to live in. Almost as good as Dallas.
Oh, you are very kind. I think that in August, when it's been your 15th day over 100 degrees, we may disagree. Thank goodness for air conditioning. So
That's right.
growing up, what kind of music did your family listen to? Were they musical?
They were differently. My father was listening to music, but he didn't focus on anything really. He listened to all sorts of French singers, from Maurice Chevalier to others. my mother is and was a much stronger music fan. She listened to Yves Montand, crooner, 50s and 60s Sinatra, like a version of
Hmm.
Frank Sinatra. And when I grew up, I think the earliest recollection I have of really listening to music, probably when I was 15 or 16, a British group called Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, probably around 82 or 83. And then I discovered Springsteen, Dylan, black music, classical music. Each took me into a rabbit hole of a few years discovering and enjoying the eclectic sounds.
That's great, Daniel. You know, um, I ask everyone that story, and it is a wide variety of, sometimes both parents are really into music. Other times it's just a father that connects with the son or daughter, but it is fairly often like Bruce, where the mom is the one that's passionate and you share that, that mother son bond over music. So that's beautiful. That's great. So you've mentioned twice that you discovered Bruce. Tell me that story. How did you find him? And if you can articulate, what about his music spoke to you?
Wow, thank you very much for both questions. Truth to be told, I think the first time I was exposed to Springsteen's music was through covers.
Okay.
I think initially there was another British band called Frankie Goes to Hollywood,
Hmm.
and they covered Born to Run.
A very different version of it, but yes.
Yes, and I think when I listened to Born to Run, the album, that was the moment I realized I knew that song, but now I'm listening to the original. So it was
That's
that sort
great.
of, yes. Back then, I tried to listen to Springsteen chronologically. So I started with the very early stuff, pre-Born to Run, Asbury Park, and The Wild Innocent and East Street Shuffle. If I had to say it in a nutshell, I think the period I enjoy most is probably 75 to 87.
Okay.
Springsteen has done great music since. There were many amazing songs in Wrecking Ball and Western Stars and Letter to You and probably every Springsteen album has amazing songs, but I think that was a stroke of genius of 5 or 6 albums: Born to Run, Darkness, The River, Nebraska, Born to US in the USA, and Tunnel of Love, where I knew every song by heart at one point or another.
Yeah, that is a pretty good hitting streak, right? Like, uh, so um, the you talked about also going down other rabbit holes of
Yes,
Dylan, classical music, soul music.
yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. What it appears, and we just met, but it seems you are very thoughtful, very analytical. So, like, I love the idea. You didn't say, "Oh, I went and found every Bruce album I could find." You went, "Oh, I need to start at the beginning," which I'm kind of like that with a writer. Like if I find a writer that has done a series, I'm like, "Oh, I've got to read his first novel," or I've got to go. So it seems like and I don't mean that in a bad way, right? Like that's how you think and that's how you um consume the art.
Right. When you think of it, it's much easier today to discover the music you want with Spotify and Amazon
Yeah.
and YouTube. So I had the privilege to be able to start where Springsteen started. Um, let me say this. Um, the other rabbit holes like Dylan, um, every Dylan album from 63 to probably at least 83 has amazing moments, and Dylan's journey has been even more hectic and more unexpected, if you like.
Yeah.
But I really like the way he composes songs and the way he you can never know what to expect. I watched Springsteen live, and I also watched Dylan live. I thought I knew what to expect when I attended the Springsteen concert. I had no idea what to expect when I attended the Dylan concert. And that's also something that's interesting for me to you mentioned the chronological albums. I think I'd rather start from the beginning in order to see the progression an artist has made, because otherwise, if you start with Born to Run, then you have no context. It's an amazing album. Okay,
Right.
I'm not bad mouthing it, but if you listen to it after hearing what Springsteen has released before that, then you see the pivoting and the change. The themes are probably similar in one way or another, but musically, it's even more challenging to innovate after you've released best-selling albums and double albums and box sets. So I appreciate it even more when I know what the artist has recorded and released previously.
You mentioned, and I'm going to ask you in a minute about the number of times you've seen Bruce, and I always like to preface that with the amount of times you've seen Bruce is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are. Circumstances can direct, like he's never toured in Israel, which I know that some of my Jewish friends have expressed that he wished they would, that, but you said that you went in to see Bruce live and to see Dylan live with unsure expectations. I've never heard anyone mention that before. So talk to me a little bit. First off, you can tell me how many times you've seen him, but then talk about your expectations going into both shows, and then how leaving, how you felt.
Wow, cool. So just to mention the first point, maybe
Yeah.
once you've got a third guest from Israel,
Yes.
Bruce will decide to come and tour.
There we go. That's my
Okay.
new, yeah. I have a wonderful friend on the internet that is from Winnipeg, Canada, and that is one of her things. She's like, tour Winnipeg, tour Winnipeg. Bruce had never been to Winnipeg, so I need to get tour Israel, tour Israel. Yes.
Cool. I think, okay, I only watched one Springsteen concert live.
Okay.
That was the Tunnel of Love tour in '87 in Paris, France.
Okay.
And back, I was researching Springsteen and reading about it, and I remember reading about 3-hour concerts and 4-hour concerts, so my expectations were a bit exaggerated.
Yes.
Like it was a good 2-hour show, but I was expecting a 4-hour show.
I think that's, I remember feeling that way too. Like I remember the first time I went was like 2 hours, 45 minutes. And I was like, now anyone else, it's a 90-minute show. And, like I was like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, almost like waiting for the encores to either bring the E Street Band or do a solo act for an hour.
Yes.
But looking back, it was a great experience to watch Springsteen live, and some artists are much better in the studio. Some artists are only good when they're on stage. I found the Springsteen experience to be different, and you can enjoy like the river. The studio version is perfect, but the live version is amazing. The one live version I think of it is amazing. So you could discover Springsteen live or Springsteen studio output, and hear different things and enjoy different aspects of his music.
Yeah. So how about Dylan? When you went to see Dylan, what was the experience?
It was great. And Dylan, Dylan actually performed in Israel, and he got very negative reviews. I
Oh,
have a,
wow.
yeah, I have a book about Dylan, Dylan concerts live from 75 to 85. And the bottom line is Dylan could, just like Bruce, he could put out a show with 20 hit songs day in, day out, and get sold out
Yeah.
venues. But he basically decides he doesn't want you to recognize the songs. Dylan. Okay, so the music starts, it starts with the guitar or his harmonica, and it takes you some time because if you know the studio album well, the studio version, then you're used to hear a certain chord progression or something else, and he would strip the song and rebuild it in a completely different way, because I knew that was the way he was going to deal with the songs. I was um, excited about it, and I was listening, and I enjoyed it. But I can understand that someone that bought, maybe 2 albums, went to the show and thought he would hear more or less the same things. It could be an amazing experience for the good or for the bad. It's really a different show. I had the honor of watching Dylan backed up with Tom Petty.
Okay.
And Tom Petty is an amazing performer. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were maybe the first and only time Dylan had a professional band, and not just studio musicians. So it was an amazing evening. Both evenings were amazing in a very different way.
So one of my best friends, Sam, is a huge Dylan fan, and he goes and sees him as many times as he can. And he talks about that, especially currently, Dylan doesn't change the set list very often, and
Mhm.
it's not filled with the songs you would think he would play. And he always looks, and Sam looks and he knows, oh, they've never been and they're going to be disappointed. Because you know um Dylan's earned the right to do whatever he wants, right? So if that's what he feels like playing, that's what he feels like playing. That's great.
That's a good segue to I wanted to ask you about
Sure.
your first impressions from the Broadway shows.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you watched it or heard? What were your thoughts knowing the version, the studio versions, and when you compare it with the bare piano or
Yeah.
acoustic guitar?
Yeah. So I had um I had known the set list because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get to New York. This
Mhm.
is the first run. And so Pete on Facebook sent me a direct message and said, "Why aren't you going to Broadway?" And I said, Pete, I just can't afford it and I can't get tickets. So I'm not even going to try. He said, "Well, I can get you a ticket. How much are you willing to spend?" Wow, I don't know. Now that, so he suggested a couple of dates and he suggested some prices. So I said, okay, I got to talk to, Linda. I got to talk to my wife. So I go to my wife and I say, and you mentioned you're married. So there are times when you ask your spouse a question and they have to say yes, right? Like when uh, when Linda says, "Hey, my sister Mary's coming over Friday night. Do you care?" You can't say no, right? Like,
Correct.
no, I don't want your sister coming over. I'm tired. I don't feel like entertaining Friday night. You say yes. Hey, Linda, there's a company picnic going on Saturday. Do you mind coming? She has to say yes, right? So I said, okay, Linda, I'm about to ask you a question, and you do not have to say yes. I want that understood. She goes, well, okay, what? I said, I have the chance to go see Bruce Springsteen. Oh, I said, it's going to be blank. And I don't remember how much it was. It was $600-700. It was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and that's a lot of money. And she said, yeah, it is. But, when will you have the chance to go see him again? Yeah. She goes, well, and how much is it going to cost for you to fly? I'm like, I don't know. So let's check. So we ended up finding for it was pretty cheap, like $200-300. We found a round trip airline ticket from Dallas to New York, which included, it was like through Travelocity or one of them, and included one of those hotels that aren't really a big room. There's just a little bitty, I forget, there's a name for them. But anyway, so I basically had a cruise ship single, bed that I could spend the night. And so we figured it out, and she said, go, you've got to go. So I always give her credit for that, because she could have easily said, no, but we have other uses for that money. So to answer your question, I knew what the set list was, and I was like, I don't care about My Father's House. I don't, and, you know, I hate the blues version of Born in the USA. Like, I skip that anytime it's on tracks. I've skipped that. And why is he doing Dancing in the Dark? That makes no sense for an acoustic show. Yeah, that's fine when he's inviting people on stage, but that just makes no sense. So I go to New York. I end up meeting, and listeners, if you guys don't want to hear this, you should have skipped ahead already. But anyway, I met Bella, who is who's been on the podcast multiple times. We had dinner. We had a great time. And so I'm in my seat, and I looked around at everyone. I said, okay, no talking, right? Like I don't, and the guy behind me goes, the only sound you're going to hear is me probably crying. He says, I'm so happy. So then My Father's House, and I go, oh God, I was an idiot. That was perfect. And then I said, oh, God, what a fool. The blues version of Born in the USA, after him talking about, I wonder who went in my place. It was perfect. And then when he talks about his mom and dancing, and then Dancing in the Dark into Land of Hope and Dream. And Land of Hope and Dreams is, if you push me, that is my favorite Bruce Springsteen song. Was just perfect. So I end the night, and I'm blown away. I was so grateful that I got the chance to see it live. And so to answer a very long-winded answer to your question, right? I had expectations going in, and every song that I heard him do was perfect in that night. And I had seen the Devils and Dust tour, which was similar, but not. I mean, he was him and his guitar, and he was telling stories, but it wasn't that kind of story. So yeah, I was just really bowled over with how he interpreted those songs, weaved in the story. I mean, how does 10th Avenue Freeze Out become this wonderful, sentimental song about Clarence and the other band members, instead of on stage, this live anthem of freedom and, joy? So, yeah.
Wow. So you picked the right album and the right decision to go, and you picked the right wife.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Well, that in many ways, yes, I'm lucky. Linda and I got married in 84. We met in 80. We dated about 4 years, then got married. And so I always joke, I'm glad Linda let me be the one. And, and she has been a good companion on this part of the ride. Yeah. And she is not a Bruce fan. She likes him live, and she is excited about the new tour and is planning to go with me to a couple of shows. So yeah.
Wow,
there
that's
we go.
amazing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, how about you? When you saw it on, Netflix, did you go in there with expectations, and what was your thoughts on it?
Um, I'm not sure I knew what to expect. I think it's a tour de force because once an artist gets to the stage, he can't, you cannot be an angry young man and smash guitars past a certain age. So you need to reinvent yourself. And I think the decision to do an acoustic show, just Springsteen and a piano or guitar, was the right move. It took me a couple of seconds to digest what I was watching each time a song was played, and I also liked some of the transitions. Particularly the what I watched was at one point, I'm not sure I remember it correctly, but he was stuck. There was some car issue and he couldn't drive or something, and then he was laughing at himself, saying, I'm the all-American cars and guitars, and I can't even drive here. So the ability to look at it from the outside is something that when you're a star, it's not easy to laugh about yourself and to do it, in front of the whole wide world. I enjoyed some of the parts of the songs amazingly. I think they were almost rewritten or reperformed during the Netflix special, not just technically, but it was a whole different. If that's the first time I had discovered Springsteen, I would have thought differently of everything he's done.
Yeah, I think so. So we're going to get back to Bruce and music in a minute, but I do need to talk a little bit about how did you get into the business of helping people use LinkedIn as a tool? What kind of led you to this role? And I think it's a fascinating one.
Thank you. What happened was that in 2006, I held a quota-carrying sales position, and LinkedIn simply helped me slash my sales cycle by at least 30%.
Wow. Okay.
Because back then, we needed a lot of time just to identify the right stakeholder within the organization. And bam, all of a sudden, you could simply see who's the head of purchasing, who's the VP sales, and that simply helped me beat my quota. And then I wanted to see what's under the hood. And at one point, everything I've done was related to LinkedIn in my career. So you end up saying, okay, this is what I'm doing. Maybe it's a good opportunity to specialize and to drop everything else. I'm very happy I made the decision to specialize and specialize in LinkedIn. It's a conservative network. It's a professional network. No one will be offended if I don't share pictures of dogs, cats, and stuff I've cooked. So it's good for me as well.
Okay.
And basically, I started helping people, and then they moved on and say, Daniel, I want you to train my staff. I wanted to train my team, and training is a major adrenaline or dopamine boost for me. So I enjoy it.
What are things that you see what are common mistakes? And I'm not trying to give away your free intellectual property, but just a couple of quick hits on you see that people do wrong on LinkedIn.
Wow, that would take probably 27 shows.
Wow, that much, huh?
But let me say this. Okay, well, I'll mention very briefly a few questions or things that are misunderstood about LinkedIn. The first is the difference between the importance of our profile and our page.
Okay.
And if you work in a small or medium-sized business, then you need to forget about the page and focus on your individual profile. Because your individual profile, Jesse, you have close to 5,500 connections, whereas the CoachNet page has less than 700 followers.
Right.
So even if you're a one-man band or one-man army, or if you employ 10 or 15 people, forget about the page and focus about your individual profile, because lead generation will basically not happen through the page. The page is pretty static. It needs to be there. You need to check it every couple of months, but you as a person, you as an individual, you're going to drive the market need and the market recognition and eventually the sales. Second very common misunderstanding or myth is about the importance of quantity in the size of your network. I have less than 1,000 connections, and everything I earn can be attributed to LinkedIn in one way or another. And basically, you need to make a choice whether you go for quantity or quality. It can be either way. The general, because people find it difficult to make up their minds, they start with quality. Then they hear they need to get a larger network, and they start adding more people without ever reaching a significant amount of people. And that means they're losing on both ends, because you no longer can be introduced to the person you want to be introduced to, because you no longer know your network. You polluted the quality of your network, and you only added marginal exposure. Because if you look at it and you say, I have 3,000 connections, I'm popular, you forget that most of our network is not 24/7 on LinkedIn. So maybe 2% will see what you shared. And if you, so make up, yeah.
I think that's a great point. And, you know, I got on LinkedIn because I had a boss probably 10 years ago that said, I want everyone working for me to have a LinkedIn profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I update it when I'm trying to find a new role.
Yep.
So I don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, but I do feel that, because every once in a while, someone will reach out to me and say, hey, Jesse, you know, your friends, you know, you have a connection with Tom Jones, Sam
Mm-hmm.
Smith. Can you introduce me? And I'm like, I just, they work in a call center. I work in a call center. LinkedIn suggested I add them, and I did. I have no connection to them. And I feel bad for my friend, because I would love to connect them. I think, you know, in most cases, there's someone who would be really good in the organization. So that's an interesting point of, and I guess I would maybe, do you think you should, as a LinkedIn user, determine what do you want LinkedIn to do for you?
Yes, sir.
Like one of the first questions you should ask, correct?
Yes, sir. Because everything else is driven from your answer. And you would be amazed, Jesse, to remember that maybe most LinkedIn users have never asked themselves the questions you just asked.
I haven't. Right.
So if you decide that you want LinkedIn to bring you X, then everything becomes it becomes easier. Because if you really want exposure and you have a system of leveraging that exposure, then there is a way for you to do it on LinkedIn. Or if you want trust, if you want to be able to be introduced to the CEO of XYZ, that means you have to have a quality network and know all your connections. And they're mutually exclusive. So you need to pick one, and simply asking yourself, what would you like LinkedIn to do for you, is maybe the single most important thing to remember, because that will enable you, even if when you pivot in 2 years' time, to still have your eyes on the ball.
So how to build a LinkedIn profile for business success is your book, available on Amazon, and I'm sure wherever other books are sold. Do you, and you also, I'm going to include a link to your website. I'll include a link to where you buy the book. It sounds like this is a dumb question, but you seem to be pretty passionate about this. This is something that helping other people achieve their success seems to bring you joy.
Yes, there's no, it's amazing to see that when you help someone make up their mind and you see the fruit of their decision, it's yes, it brings me joy. And you know, I could have helped them if I went to medical school and I would do
Yeah.
something more significant, but that's something I can do, and it's easily done. Yes, I enjoyed it very much.
Okay, good. Awesome. All right. So everyone go to his webpage, go check to his book. All right, back to music. You've already mentioned that you think that kind of run of albums was you think you know, his kind of his your favorite period. I'm not saying it's his best period, it's just your favorite period. I like that. Are there first off, what do you think of the two new covers we've gotten from the Soul album?
Which ones? I'm sorry.
Oh, he's just released two singles for that covers album. Have you
Wow.
gotten to hear
So
them?
no, sir. So this
Okay.
is something I'm going to check. I don't want to
Yeah.
guess.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yes, he is going to release in November a cover of
Mhm.
an album of nothing but covers, all soul
Okay.
songs.
Okay.
And yeah, and he just did Night Shift,
Hmm.
which is the Commodore song. He
Yes.
just released that. And let me see, the other one is oh, come on. All right, I'll add this later. Let's see. And then the other one was a oh, let's see. There we go. I'll cut this out. Do I Love You? Indeed I Do was the first song he set out. They're both videos out there, so check them out. It sounds a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Um, the where what's so songs or albums that you mentioned that group, but are there other songs or albums that you go to on a consistent basis to try to bring you joy, to help you get through rough times? Talk to me about that reservoir you go to.
Springsteen Reservoir.
Yeah, or the others could
Cool.
be fine.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Each album has a sort of emotion that it just looking at the cover makes me think of a certain emotion. So Darkness on the Edge of Town and Born to Run don't cover exactly the same emotion. Born to Run is an album I try to listen to from A to Z and just be amazed of the sheer variety and quality. It's like an opera in one way or another. You know, I remember buying the actual album. So side A and side B, everything is made in a certain way. My kids don't understand, like they shuffle music all day long, and they can no longer consume albums the way we used to, maybe. But I try to listen to the Born to Run in a sequence, and I think the art of deciding what song should start the album, what song should end the album, and where exactly do you put Meeting Across the River is a very important decision for the artist and for the label or in the company. I enjoy Darkness on the Edge of Town, and it has some very strong, angry, Adam Raised the Cane and in Kid's Room. The River in Nebraska, probably. Okay, Nebraska is a depressingly amazing album.
Yeah.
It's an amazing album, but it's depressing. So I'll admit it's not an album I listen to frequently. Springsteen's ability to paint, the state trooper and the characters there, it's amazing, but I can't handle it on a regular basis. It's too bleak and too dark for me most of the days. The river has some ballads and dark themes as well, but it also has Point Blank, which I think is an amazing song that some people who even know some Springsteen stuff haven't really listened to, haven't really discovered yet. And Born in the USA is um, an album I'm able to play out loud when I'm doing other things, and I know everything by heart. So it would, if I have a task at hand that is demanding, but it needs time to recharge, so Born to Run would bring me that emotion, if you'd like.
Okay.
Just a word about Nebraska. I think the decision to release the album as is, I think Springsteen came to John Landa with a 4-track recordings, basically just with a guitar in some cases. I've never heard anything from a major artist that was so stark and naked and successful. I'm sure other artists have done that, but not at the peak of their career like Springsteen has. And I think it is, back then, for a label to even decide to release that sort of album is something extraordinary to look at. So I appreciate the decision to make it, but the songs themselves are, it's like you get a fist in your belly, and I can't listen to it too frequently.
Yeah. So Mark Hornak and I just end of last month, did a deep dive. We talked
Yes.
about the album because it's their anniversary. And I had
Mhm.
never thought about this before, but Mark brought up the fact that now that we've had the Broadway and his
Mhm.
autobiography, we know his mental state when he was recording this. And if you listen with that concept, it brings it even deeper. And I agree with you. Nebraska is not a album that, hey, let's have some fun, right? Like, no. I agree with you. Born in the USA, you throw in there, you're running errands, you're doing stuff. Uh, you're on a car trip, you don't throw in Nebraska. Hey, let's, let's drink some soda pops and eat beef jerky and listen to Nebraska. But it is that you think about what that young man was going through, the depression he was fighting, the struggle with his father, the idea of going
Mhm.
where it is. And I don't there was a I don't know if you saw the Ken Burns documentary on country music.
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's available online. It's amazing. Ken Burns, who does great documentaries. So he covers the history of country music, but
Mhm.
they had record executives on theirs, and they talked about Willie Nelson's Redheaded Stranger, that album.
Okay. Yes.
And Willie recorded it, gave him the finished album. And so this executive saying, we all knew it was crap. It sounded horrible. The mix was off. This is just horrible. What are we going to do? And they're like, well, this is what Willie wants to do. He said, so we said, okay, we're going to release it. It will bomb, and then Willie will listen to us. He says, we release it, it becomes a million seller. It's a instant classic, and we go, okay, maybe we don't know what we're talking about. So I almost picture that, right? The Columbia Records was like, did you hear what this Bruce brought? Yeah. God, this is depressing. I know. And we just had so much momentum after the river. Okay, well, let's just put up with them. All right. And then, of course, in his in the biography, they talk about that
Mhm.
when he brought Born in the USA, they were like, okay, this is more like it. But I do picture that the same thing, those guys at Columbia going, this, what, we don't even have a single on this. But I think in a lot of ways, like Atlantic City is one of his
Mhm.
most covered songs.
Right.
And it's just something beautiful. And it's great.
Absolutely.
All right. I have kept you almost an hour, so I don't want to keep you too long. This has been a blast. Any final thoughts before we get to the Mary question?
I wanted to say thank you very much because previous to our recording, I listened to all sorts of Springsteen albums, including some I haven't mentioned here, and I
Yeah.
rediscovered them thanks to you. So Jesse, thank you very much.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about the soul covers, and I will check out your book. I think it's interesting. The um, it is a tool that I currently am not using, and it's always good to have an extra tool in the toolkit. So absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So if you are a fan of Daniel's and you are checking out this podcast, you may be going, wow, he didn't talk about LinkedIn a lot. And so we gave Daniel a chance to talk about a little bit different. It was so funny because when we exchanged emails to pull the curtain back, you're like, yes, I'd love to talk Bruce. So I am so glad we did this. I end every podcast with the Mary question. Jay Armstrong, who is a recently retired honors English teacher from the Philadelphia area, he would take the song Thunder Road and would break it apart with his seniors, and they would discuss the themes, the imagery, treat it as a poem. And at the end of 2 days, he would ask the question, does Mary get in the car? So Daniel, that's your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Okay, Jesse, I'm not sure I want to know.
Okay, I think
That's
that
the
is a valid
answer.
answer.
I think when I listen to the song, I see it from Springsteen's perspective and not from Mary's. And the what he mentioned there was complete yeah, on its own for me. So it's good that you can decide she doesn't or she does, and that will be maybe another song. But I'm not anxious to know the answer. I think the struggle itself or the foreplay or the what they do before she decides is interesting enough.
Okay, I love that. If someone wants to reach you, how can they?
DanielAlfon.com is the best place to go. Just mention I was listening to Lasting with Bruce with Jesse Jackson, and I'll try to reply as soon as I can.
That sounds great. All right. Thank you, Daniel. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to we're going to try to have you on again. You had sent me a playlist of some songs that you said you'd love to discuss. And so maybe in about a month or so, we'll figure out another time. We'll kind of go through why those songs and why that playlist. I think that would be a fun discussion.
My pleasure. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. I look forward to it.
Yes. All right, listeners, go get vaccinated, go get boosted, and let's all be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.